Hi everybody, I'm here for Fragment Friday, and today I'm going to be reading from Lost Voices by Sarah Porter, and I'm just going to start at the beginning, so there really isn't a whole lot that you need to know. Lucette, did you even hear the question? Luce had been gazing out the window at the darkened sky, sinking over the harbor still dotted with rough floating ice, the mountain walls of shadow-colored spruce and rusty boulders under the greenish glassy dusk of a coming storm. Mr. Carroll's voice jolted her back into the drab classroom with its tan desks and low-scarred ceiling, and she noticed with dismay that half a dozen faces were already turning to stare into the back corner where she sat under a tattered map of the world. None of her other teachers ever called on her. Only Mr. Carroll insisted on trying to make her talk. If only he would leave her alone, Luce knew, the other kids would forget her existence completely. She tightened her body and stared as blankly as she could at the board as the first giggle started up around her. Her stomach began to twist and her hands turned horribly cold. She squeezed them together under the desk to stop the trembling. Lucette, you should be on page 112 of your textbook, the third problem. She was on page 112. She gaped down automatically at the third problem, and she was sure she knew the right answer. It was obvious. The laughter got louder and faster. It buzzed around her like angry wasps. Mr. Carroll waved a hand to quiet everyone, but it didn't have much effect. She hated the concern growing in his droopy gray eyes. Luce knew that the quickest way to make them all ignore her again would be just to answer the question. Parabolic. She opened her mouth to say the word. Nothing came out except a kind of faint croak. Everyone could see her now, and almost all of them were giggling. Her hands were shaking so much that she had to sit on them. Desperately, Luce tried to force her voice to shape the word. Just one word, and she would be free again. Her croaking got a little louder. Most of the time, she could talk as well as anyone, even if she almost always chose to keep quiet. Lately, though, her voice had developed a habit of abandoning her whenever she needed it most. Someone squealed and threw a wad of paper at her, clipping her on the side of her head. That was enough to knock Mr. Carroll out of his trance. His wobbly eyes spun away from Luce. His huge round cheeks flushed scarlet, though there was no reason why he should feel embarrassed. Amber, Mr. Carroll yelped too loudly to a girl sitting all the way at the front. It was almost a shout. It was as if he thought he could cancel out the ugliness of what he'd done, drawing all those eyes down on the skinny dark-haired girl who huddled in the back of his class, struggling with the loss of her voice. I have no idea what the answer is to this stupid problem, Mr. Carroll, Amber twittered in her happy voice. Nobody does except you. The shrieks of laughter that followed were strangely excited, and Mr. Carroll took advantage of the shifting mood, clowning as he worked out the problem on the blackboard. Even now he couldn't leave it alone, though. He kept shooting Luce guilty looks, pinching his lips together, and of course everybody noticed. Every time he glanced her way, a few more pairs of eyes flocked after his. Luce kept her face down, drawing a thicket of black hatched lines in her book until the ink became so dense that hardly any white shone through. When the bell finally rang, Luce felt sicker than ever. The other students grabbed up their backpacks and raced out, eager to get to the cafeteria for lunch. Lunch. Where in that bright, blocky room would she ever be able to hide? Mr. Carroll tried to catch her attention as she slipped past him, but Luce pretended not to notice. This is like 8th grade already, a boy hissed in her ear. You act like some freaked-out 10-year-old. Luce kept her face blank and unresponsive, even when he prodded her arm. She slunk after the other students, staying close to the walls. A crack of thunder smacked against her thoughts. It was terrifically loud. The lightning must have struck very close to the school. Not today, Luce thought, and all at once she remembered the date again. Her stomach seethed, and she knew that the storm wouldn't just blow over. She'd have to spend the afternoon watching the rain lash down outside and listening to the window panes clashing like cymbals in the wind. It would be exactly the way everything was a year ago today, the day her father's boat hadn't come home. There was one good thing about the storm anyway. It was a distraction. Kids huddled in the cafeteria pretending to be terrified of the booming thunder, screaming and grabbing each other. The windows near the ceiling of the tall room looked almost black, and the rain rattled rock sharp against the panes. It was a small space compared to cafeterias Luce had seen before, but even with students bussed in from every village within 30 miles, it was always half empty. Lightning ripped through the darkness, and the windows flashed blinding white and then went dark again. Everyone was too busy chattering about the violent weather to think of her. She slipped off to her usual spot at the side and sat alone with her back to everyone, and closed her eyes. And I'm going to stop there. Lost Voices comes out July 5th, and it's a debut novel, so if you're participating in the Story Sirens 2011 debut challenge, this is a good book to read for it. And I hope that I will be able to see a whole bunch of other Fragment Fridays. If you've been participating in the last couple of weeks, go ahead and put your links in the Mr. Linky that's below this video if you're on my blog. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can access my blog. I put the link in the more info thing below the video. And just go there and you can put in links to your Fragment Fridays if you don't actually, if you don't own a blog or something like that and you've just been posting on YouTube. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this, and definitely go check out this book if it sounds interesting. I will see you all next month for Fragment Friday. Bye.